Benny Hill was a British performer who was best known for his slapstick humor, which could make anyone laugh. People all over the world were captivated by his unique brand of comedy and his appearance on screen. As times changed though, the show got more and more bad reviews for how it portrayed women and how often it used inappropriate jokes. Benny was a multi-millionaire, but he had a lot of fears and was very afraid to spend money. Benny wore his clothes until they were worn out. When his shoe feet came off, he would glue them back on. Come with us as we learn more about the Benny Hill Show's history. Alfred Hill, who became known as Benny Hill, was born on January 21, 1925, in Southampton, England. He was the class clown. He was already making money by 6 years old by singing famous songs for people at the beach. In his teens, he quit school and became a milkman, but he later chose to go to London in search of a better future. He was able to get a job in the props department of a theater there. Hill got his big break when an actor couldn't perform because they were drunk. The director liked Hill's backstage performances and gave him a chance. It was 1942, and Benny was called up to join the British Army for the Second World War. He was trained as a mechanic. During September 1944, he worked as a mechanic, a truck driver, and a searchlight operator in Normandy. He then went to work for soldiers, sailors, airmen and Marines in the Combined Service Entertainment Division. There were comedians in British music halls that made Benny want to work in show business. He picked the name Benny because it was the name of another comedian, Jack Benny. After World War II, Benny Hill started his career over. His first radio show on Variety Bandbox on October 5, 1947, and his first TV show in 1950 took him to new heights. A show called Benny Hill ran from 1962 to 1963, and he played a different character in each episode. In the same year, 1964, he played an A** in a TV play called Nick Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream. From 1964 to 1966, he hosted the Benny Hill Time program, which had funny sketches like Bond and the Beatles. Benny Hill was in 5 full-length pictures. Who Did It? Light Up the Sky came out in 1956, in 1960, The Italian Job in 1969, Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines in 1965, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in 1968. He also made 2 short pictures. There was The Waiters in 1969, and Eddie in August 1970. In 1974, a movie called The Best of Benny Hill came out. It had clips from his early TV shows. Some of Hill's most well-known radio works are Gather in the Mushrooms, Peep's Diary, which came out in 1961, Transistor Radio, also in 1961, Harvest of Love, 1963, and Ernie, the Fastest Milkman in the West, which was #1 on the UK charts during the Christmas of 1971. In 1972, he won an Ivor Novello Award for the song Ernie. A lot of powerful people love Benny Hill. During Hill's tour in the 1970s, Johnny Carson, Adam Carolla, and even Michael Jackson gave him praise. Hill played Scuttle in the 1987 music video for Genesis's song Anything She Does. It was 2011 when the rapper Snoop Dogg said they liked Hill. Hill was funny, and many movie stars, including Burt Reynolds, Michael Caine, Mickey Rooney, and many more, liked it while he was working. But author Anthony Burgess said he was just as funny as Charlie Chaplin and Stan Laurel. Do you agree with the idea that Benny Hill is like Charlie Chaplin? Around the beginning of the 1970s, Benny Hill's show was one of the most watched on TV, with people from all over the world. There are some things that can be said about the show. It had memorable sketches and characters who did physical comedy along with the skits. In 1955, BBC showed the first episodes of this show, which were shorter acts with comedy and music. Hill took the show to BBC until 1968. In 1969, he moved it to Thames Television. Slapstick, mime, parody, and even double entendre were all parts of the humor on The Benny Hill Show. In 1971, more than 21 million people watched this show at its peak. Hill won 2 BAFTA Television Awards in 1972 for the job he did, one for Best Writer and one for Best Entertainment Performance. The show became popular in the US in the 1970s, and was shown all over the country until 1991. In 1980 and 1981, it was up for an Emmy, and in 1984, Hill got the Rose d'Or. But Tim's TV ended the show in 1989 because it wasn't getting enough viewers, and it cost a lot to make, about $555,000 per episode, which is about $1.75 million in 2024 dollars. Even though the show was cancelled, its impact lasted. Its theme song won the award for Most Popular TV Theme Song in 2015 in the ITV show, The Sound of ITV. The Benny Hill Show kept people entertained with its unique structure and interesting story. Short comedy sketches with Benny Hill were shown on it, and modern artists would sometimes play music. Hill often changed into different outfits to play many different roles. Some people said the show was sexist, but supported it by saying that the women kept their pride while the men were made to look stupid. Hill called the show live animation because it used fast motion and visual jokes, as well as mime and spoof. The show often finished with a fast chase scene with Hill being chased, usually because of his antics, and the yakety sax playing in the background to make it look like an old Keystone Cop chase. Hill also wrote and performed patterned songs and rhymes that were done quickly and in one take to make people laugh. Hill was very creative with TV cameras, which let him make funny allusions, like in his 1976 spoof, Murder on the Oregon Express. He played cops from the 1970s like Ironside and Kojak by editing, changing camera angles and impersonating them. During his work, he also imitated American stars and fictional characters, like W.C. He made fun of films and TV shows like The $6 Million Man, Starsky and Hutch, and The A-Team, which he called the B-Team. Hill didn't just impersonate American celebrities, she also did British celebrities, like Shirley Bassey, Michael Caine, and newsreader Reginald Bisonk, as well as foreign stars like Nana Muscuri and Miriam Makeba, and Cliff Micklemore and Alan Wicker. Besides imitating them, he also did impersonations of musicians, Roger Whittaker, and Tony Hatch, politicians Lord Boothby and Dennis Healy, and comic Dave Allen. Hill would sometimes even pretend to be Nicholas Parsons, who used to be his co-star, as a parody of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. He was in films with both Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. Yakety Sax, the show's ending song written by James Q. Spider, Rich and Boots Randolph, became a famous tune. Ronnie Aldrich was in charge of the music, and the Ladybirds, who also appeared on TV and in films from 1969 to 1974, sang backup. In Aldrich's version of Yakety Sax, which first aired in the 1969 episode, and was the first time the show was shown on Thames Television, Peter Hughes played the saxophone solo. In 1973 and 1974, Albert Elms was in charge of music for a few shows. Yes, it's the Benny Hill Show, which was often said by Henry McGee, was the show's signature enthusiastic opening. Since 1975, Hill has been known as the boy himself. A lot of the time, he would greet the crowd and say, "Thank you for being here, and we hope to see you all again soon. Until then, goodbye." There was Henry McGee, John Keefe, Ken Said, Nicholas Parsons, Bob Todd and Jackie Wright in the main group. Jenny Lee Wright, Sue Bond, Bettina LeBeau, Leslie Goldie, Cherry Gillum, and Diana Darby were some of the main female cast members, also known as Sex Pot Women. After a while, the dance group Hill's Angels joined the show, and Sue Upton and Louise English became regulars. Jane Leeves only showed up for a short time in the early 1980s. As backup singers, female singers from the Ladybirds, like Maggie Streeter, often showed up. Anna Dawson, Bella Emberg, Rita Webb, Helen Horton, and Patricia Hayes were all character actors. Even though he was famous, Benny Hill never got married or had kids, and no one seems to know why. Two women, including actress Annette Andre, said they turned down his approaches in the early 1960s, but no specifics were given. Hill told Jane Dexter of the Daily Mirror that it was hard for him to find a girlfriend, and that it was like working in a chocolate factory, where there were so many options that it was hard to choose just one. He said that he wanted a woman with common sense who worked in a normal job, like an office, workplace, or shop assistant. He was most interested in getting married with dancer Doris Deal, but they broke up when she said she wasn't ready. Despite having problems with love, he had to deal with rumors about his sexuality, which he strongly rejected. He was very focused on his work, and spent a lot of time making scripts and ideas better. He was known for being a perfectionist. Hill lived simply, even though he was wealthy. He rented a two-room flat in London for 26 years, and then moved to Fairways House in Teddington in 1986, but he still didn't own his own home. Because of how he was raised, he thought of himself as a man with normal habits. So he chose simple things like buying cheap food at the store, walking instead of taking a car, and fixing his clothes instead of buying new ones. Though he had a driver's license, he never owned a car. He was more of an alchemist in the best sense of the word, living off of what he needed. Despite being shy, did very well in public, combining his love of music with his sense of humor. It was fun for him to play the saxophone and include music in his comedy sketches, often making fun of famous songs. This made his shows even more creative. The Benny Hill Show was very famous in part because of how hard he worked at it, but was that all Benny Hill had to offer? Check back to find out. Benny Hill was never gay, but he was famous for being funny when he dressed up as different people, like Fanny Craddock, a toothy Moira Anderson, and all three of the Beverly Sisters. His personal life stayed a secret, and he was afraid of women, which was one of his darker traits. Hill was very shy and awkward around women, even though he was very good at what he did. He often talked about two events from his childhood that shaped his decision to stay single. One was a girl on the beach who wouldn't share her shells, and one where a girl at a fair wouldn't give up her candy floss. He said these events were so terrible that they made him deserve to be alone his whole life. He admitted that he did follow these girls home, but he said he never talked to them, saying, "I wouldn't do that." It's not clear whether this behavior was polite or scary, but it made him feel more alone. Hill passed the 11+ test when he was 10, but he didn't like school and didn't have many friends. Soon after he quit and went to work as a clerk at Phoenix Wharf and Coal Company in Southampton. Later he unloaded lorries for Woolworths, where he quietly liked a girl named Jean who worked at the perfume counter but was turned down again. Benny Hill made up the character of Ernie, the fastest milkman in the West, while working as a delivery man for Dorset Dairies. He imagined himself driving a wagon train. In 1972, he won the Ivor Novello Award for the song he wrote about these events. Years ago found comfort in the motherly care of women, as one of her former co-workers put it. Not like Robin Asquith, who was famous for his wild sexual adventures, Hill found that doing shows and performances was a great way to get noticed. He began making jokes for just 5 shillings a night. He thought that becoming a clown would make everyone love him, and that would be the end of his life. His parents didn't agree with his dreams of becoming famous in show business, and his mother told him, "Get a real job, Alfie, one with a pension. You could deliver mail." Hill moved to London, and spent the nights in air raid bunkers that were full of rats. In East Ham, he got a job as an assistant stage manager. His job there was to paint backgrounds and clean up after Scylla's dogs and Peppino's Wonder Circus animals. He also filled in for artists who were too drunk to do their own shows and did things that required blackface. He lived in a glamorous but run-down world with slackers, gay people, and people who didn't want to be involved in the war effort. Hill tried to dodge military service at first, but he was eventually drafted and served in the army from 1942 to 1947, a time he hated, especially when he was in an anti-aircraft searchlight unit and did badly on tests with other soldiers. After the war, Hill used the 52 British pounds he got for being released from the army to support himself while he tried to make a living as a comic. Besides comedy calypsos on the radio, he also played at the end of the pier in Weston-super-Mare and at Masonic dinners. During one show he began to sing, "A beat. I'm so beautiful," but an offensive remark from a bystander cut him off, which made him give up, and his act stopped. His gums were red to make his teeth look better, and he often walked to his gigs in the rain. He made a big change when he went on tours with Reg Varney to Margate and Sunderland as his helper. People didn't like Hill's tries at a Chinaman conjuring act, and it made him feel even worse when people laughed at him. Dancer Maureen Risco saw that Benny wasn't getting along with women while she was working with Varney. When she asked him about it, he told her one of his usual stories about love that didn't work out. He talked about times as a child when he was at the beach, the fair, and Woolworth's perfume store. Researchers have found that his last major relationship was with Doris Deal in 1954. Deal was a chorus girl at the Windmill Theatre in Soho. They broke up because she wanted to get married, and he said no, which caused her to leave. He seemed to find comfort in his sadness, loving the idea of a lost love that had never been his. In 1969 he thought about it and said, Being truly in love can be miserable. It feels like a pain in the chest, almost like choking. In the middle of the 1980s, Benny Hill had health problems, such as heart problems, that made it harder for him to act. In February 1992, he had a small heart attack. Doctors told him he should have a bypass, but he refused. Hill kept going on TV, even though his health was getting worse, which showed how much he cared about his job. He died in his Teddington flat on the 20th of April 1992, at the age of 68. His body was found days later after calls went unanswered. Heart disease killed him, and he was buried in Hollybrook Cemetery, which is close to Southampton. Thieves broke into his coffin because they heard he was buried with gold, but they didn't find any goods. People all over the world still enjoy Benny Hill's comedy, and his work as a singer and performer lives on. Want to know why the Benny Hill Show ended? Keep listening to find out. People in the US, the UK, and more than 100 other countries watched the Benny Hill Show for fun. The show, which ran for more than 20 years until 1989, made Hill popular all over the world with its sexy songs, sketches, and chase scenes. People didn't like how the show portrayed women. Even though it was popular, they said it was sexist and treated women like objects. Hill explained his writing by saying that he wanted to make the women look smart while making the men look stupid. The Benny Hill Show and its humor were seen in different ways at different times. As societal norms changed, Hill's use of adult material came under close review. Even though it was criticized, the show is still an important part of television history, known for the new ways it made people laugh and how it changed popular culture. But in the end, it was canceled, mostly because of complaints about how it portrayed women. Some people said that the show's falling popularity was because of sexism and stereotypes. Hill said that his humor was harmless, but sponsors stopped supporting him because of the negative feedback, which caused him to have money problems. Thames Television couldn't keep making the show because it was too expensive and fewer people were watching it, so it was cancelled. Hill's strict control over the show's content may have also led to its end. Once the show was cancelled, there wasn't much that could be done to make changes that would please reviewers or keep up with changing TV trends. Hill's need to be perfect often caused problems with network executives. Thames chose to end the show, even though it had been successful in the past. Hill and his friends were upset, but he had to accept what was decided. What do you think about Thames' choice? Fans of the Benny Hill Show love how it has its own style of comedy and how charming Hill is on stage. At first, the show was supposed to be serious, but Benny Hill quickly saw how funny he was and changed it to just comedy, which made it a huge hit. One of his most loved characters was Fred Scuttle, who was always getting into silly scenarios and was always happy. Fred Scuttle was a fun nod to Hill's dentist, which made the show even cuter. Hill was very active with making the show. He wrote most of the sketches, composed a lot of the music, directed episodes, and even edited them. The Benny Hill Show began in black and white, but when it switched from the BBC to ITV's Thames Television in 1969, it went to color. Superteach, the first show in color, aired on November 19, 1966. It made Hill's visual humor even better. Hill made a name for himself in music and films as well as TV. His last TV show, Benny Hill World Tour New York, aired in 1991, and was his last show in the United States before he died. The show took place in New York City, and had Hill's usual slapstick, wordplay and interviews with real people. This tour showed off his comedy skills and how popular and hard-working he is around the world. Even though Benny Hill has died, his comedy is still remembered, and the Benny Hill Show is still a hit and airs on many stations, cementing his place in the history of TV. TV channels like Channel 4, and That's TV have kept showing the Benny Hill Show, introducing his hilarious talent to new and old fans alike. In 1998, Channel 4 honored Hill's contribution to British comedy by featuring him in a show called Heroes. DJ Taylor named him the third best British comic of the 20th century in 2002, showing how influential he was. The 2006 film Is Benny Hill Still Funny? Channel 4 looked at Hill's humor in the context of current comedy, comparing it to shows like Little Britain and The Catherine Tate Show to show that his humor is still funny to people of all ages. That's TV announced in 2021 that it would run the Benny Hill Show during its Christmas schedule. This was a big deal because it was the show's first appearance on national TV in almost 20 years. With the rights to more than 40 hours of material, That's TV wants to bring Hill's classic comedy to more people and keep his legacy alive. The unique mix of slapstick, satire and musical humor on The Benny Hill Show keeps people around the world watching, proving that Benny Hill had a lasting effect on the comedy world.